What if 3 drones could erase a strategic railway in under 4 minutes without firing a single missile?
2:30 a.m. A jet-powered drone slams straight into the front left bogie of the NK-47 locomotive at nearly 380 miles per hour and explodes on contact. Steel doesn't bend, it disappears. The guiding wheel assembly is erased in a white flash, and the locomotive loses its only promise of control. The 200-ton engine tries to follow the rails left while its mass drives it forward. The result is violent. The locomotive jumps the track, crashes sideways into the canyon wall, and showers sparks across frozen granite. Inside the cab, alarms scream and then become irrelevant. Behind the engine, more than 50 fully loaded cars keep coming at roughly 40 miles per hour, hauling an estimated 300 tons of high explosives. There is no braking authority left, no command link, just momentum. A second drone hits. It collides with the exposed coupling between the engine and the first ammunition car and detonates. Hardened steel shears, clean. The train breaks apart. The following cars pile forward, crushing into twisted metal. Crates rupture. Artillery shells spill across burning wreckage. Then the third drone dives. It strikes the exposed ammunition and explodes. The fireball is massive, pressure multiplying as it rebounds between canyon walls. One detonation becomes many. Shockwaves overlap. The blast turns metal into shrapnel and air into a weapon. The explosion punches upward into an unstable snowpack hanging hundreds of feet above the tracks. The slope fractures. Ice, rock, and snow collapse in a roaring wall, burying the burning train under tens of millions of tons of debris. Flames vanish. Sound dies. The rail corridor ceases to exist, and the operation has only begun. If you were the commander watching this unfold on a failing screen, what would you do next? Comment below. At 2:18 a.m., 94 seconds before the rail corridor vanished, the attack had already begun. 5 drones skimmed the frozen terrain at an altitude of barely 40 feet, moving fast enough to outrun sound echoes in the canyon, roughly 370 to 385 miles per hour. They did not weave. They did not probe. Their spacing was exact. Their headings locked. This was not a search pattern. It was a countdown. Inside the lead drone, the navigation system ignored satellite signals entirely. GPS had already been discarded. At this range, jamming was expected. Instead, the drones flew by optical flow, reading rock edges, snow texture, and shadow contrast hundreds of times per second. Every micro correction was automatic. No human hand could keep up. 30 miles away, deep inside a dim operations room, 5 green icons slid across a battered display. The operators did not speak. They didn't need to. The math was already finished. At this speed and altitude, there would be no second pass, no abort window. Once the drones crossed the canyon mouth, physics would lock the door behind them. Then the formation changed. 2 drones suddenly pulled upward, climbing hard into thin air. The move looked suicidal, an open invitation to long-range detection. Their climb rate spiked past 8,000 feet per minute, their signatures blooming on every search radar in the sector. They dropped lower, hugging the riverbed so tightly that ice spray kicked up behind them. From above, they vanished. From below, they became ghosts. The split lasted seconds, but its effect was permanent. Russian air defense systems snapped to attention, tracking the rising contacts, reorienting arrays, recalculating threat priority. Power surged. Sensors lit up. Operators leaned forward, eyes locked upward. They never looked down. Because the real strike was already inside the canyon, racing forward unseen, counting down the final seconds to impact. 02:21 a.m. As the 2 climbing drones break through low cloud, their profiles change instantly. Simple hardware, devastating effect. Compact radar reflectors deploy, reshaping their signatures until each contact blooms on Russian scopes like a fully loaded combat aircraft. Radar cross-sections inflate by nearly 10 times, bright and undeniable. Inside the Air Defense Command Vehicle, hesitation evaporates. Operators see speed, altitude, and mass where none should exist. Threat classification flips from unidentified to priority target in under a second. The system does exactly what it was designed to do. The launch order is given. 2 long-range interceptors are cold ejected from their tubes, gas generators punching them into the air before their main motors ignite. A heartbeat later, the night ignites. Solid rocket exhaust turns darkness into daylight as the missiles accelerate past Mach 10, climbing faster than most aircraft can descend. The interceptors close the distance in seconds. Their seekers lock onto the amplified returns, blind to the deception. One drone attempts a shallow roll. It doesn't matter. The first missile detonates, shredding fiberglass and wiring into glowing fragments. A split second later, the second interceptor vaporizes the remaining decoy. 2 fireballs bloom high above the canyon, visible for miles. Inside the command vehicle, relief turns into celebration. On their screens, the threat vanishes. 2 successful kills. Millions of dollars well spent. For a moment, the sector looks secure, but the victory is an illusion. The missile launches flood the air with electromagnetic noise. Radar arrays spike to maximum output. Sensors stare upward, tracking debris, analyzing fragments, confirming destruction. And for nearly 40 seconds, everything below the ridgeline is ignored. Down in the canyon, 3 drones race forward, untouched, invisible, and already too close to stop. The real attack has just passed the point of no return. 2:24 a.m. For the Air Defense Network, this should have been the safest moment of the night. The long-range interceptors have detonated. Radar screens glow clean. Threat icons vanish one by one. Inside the command vehicle, operators begin the familiar post-launch routine. Signal confirmation, debris tracking, sector verification. Power levels peak, antennas hum. The system looks flawless. The radar arrays are still locked upward, bathing the sky in energy. Electromagnetic noise saturates the air. Fragmentation clouds from the interceptors scatter returns across multiple bands. For roughly 40 to 50 seconds, the system is overwhelmed, not broken, just distracted. Below the ridgeline, the canyon becomes a different world. Radar beams travel straight. Mountains do not bend for them. Granite walls rise like curtains, creating a blind zone nearly 1,500 feet deep. In that shadow, 3 drones surge forward at barely 30 to 35 feet above the frozen riverbed. Their turbines throttled for stability, not speed. They are not hiding. They simply exist where sensors cannot see. Thermal contrast drops as cold air pours down the canyon. At minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, exhaust plumes fade quickly, smeared by turbulence and stone. To infrared systems above, the valley floor looks dead. Inside the command vehicle, the picture feels calm. Too calm. One operator begins a sector sweep, angling the radar downward. The return flickers, weak, intermittent, gone. The software rejects it as clutter, rock, ice, terrain noise. The system is doing its job. Outside, the drones close another mile. Their navigation computers adjust hundreds of times per second, tracing canyon walls, compensating for crosswinds funneled through the gorge at nearly 35 miles per hour. Every correction keeps them locked inside the shadow. By the time anyone questions the silence, the drones are no longer approaching the target. They are already inside it. The blind window is closing, but the damage is already inevitable. 2:26 a.m. The silence breaks. A surveillance drone finally catches it. Not a clear picture, just 3 streaks of heat sliding through the canyon floor where nothing should be moving that fast. The operator freezes, then shouts. Radios crackle. The warning skips protocol and jumps straight to command. Inside the air defense vehicle, the mood snaps from confidence to shock. Screens redraw. Antennas pivot downward. The system hunts for targets that are already too close. A short-range interceptor is armed. The missile launches hard, accelerating past Mach 4 in seconds as it dives into the canyon, its seeker clawing through clutter, stone, and snow. It locks briefly, then loses it. The lead drone does not climb. It does not turn away. It drops. From 30 feet to barely 15 feet above the frozen riverbed, the drone skims low enough to throw ice dust into the air. The missile follows, forced into a brutal correction, pulling more than 25 Gs as it tries to keep up. Radar waves scatter off rock faces. The seeker chases reflections that aren't there. The missile overcorrects, clips the canyon wall, and detonates uselessly in a flash of fire and stone. The blast slaps the drone sideways, rolling it hard, nearly flipping it into the ice. For a split second, control is gone. Then the stabilizers bite. The drone recovers. Ahead, the train crew sees the explosion echo through the canyon. Panic spreads. Throttles slam forward. Guards open fire, filling the narrow corridor with tracers. Rifles, machine guns, volume over accuracy. Metal saturates the air. One round strikes a drone's wing. Hydraulics rupture. Control surfaces lag. The turbine screams as the flight computer compensates, pushing output past 110%. The drone shudders but holds formation. The canyon narrows. The curve approaches. The drones align automatically, sharing data, correcting angles, compressing distance. 2:30 a.m. The window closes. The lead drone commits first. It drops its nose and accelerates, ignoring tracer fire and turbulence, locking its optical tracker onto the front wheel assembly. At this distance, guidance is no longer calculation. It is inevitability. The drone collides, then detonates on impact. The shaped charge focuses its force into a narrow cone, turning hardened steel into vapor. The guiding flange is erased in less than a heartbeat. For a moment, the locomotive continues forward. Then, control vanishes. The 200-ton engine tries to follow a leftward curve while its mass insists on going straight. The rails lose authority. Steel screams. The locomotive derails, slamming into the canyon wall and grinding along rock, throwing a storm of sparks and fire into the frozen night. Behind it, more than 50 cars surge ahead, still moving at roughly 40 miles per hour, hauling close to 300 tons of high explosives. With pneumatic lines severed, braking is meaningless. Momentum takes command. The second drone strikes the exposed connection point between the engine and the first ammunition car. It collides and detonates. The hardened pin shears clean. The separation is total. The following cars pile forward, compressing into twisted steel. Crates rupture. Artillery shells spill across burning wreckage. Then the third drone dives. It does not rush. Its sensors scan the chaos, isolating the brightest thermal cluster. Exposed ammunition packed shoulder to shoulder. The drone impacts and detonates. One blast becomes many. A sympathetic chain reaction races through the load. Pressure multiplies as shockwaves rebound between canyon walls. Metal fragments accelerate outward faster than sound. The explosion punches upward into unstable snow and fractured rock suspended hundreds of feet above the tracks. The slope fails. Ice, stone, and debris collapse in a roaring wall, burying the wreckage under tens of millions of tons. Fire is smothered. Noise disappears. The rail corridor ceases to exist. What remains is silence and a supply route erased in minutes. The operation is complete. When the snow finally settled and the echoes faded, nothing moved in that canyon. Not trains, not signals, not certainty. A strategic rail corridor that had carried weapons, fuel, and ambition for years was gone, erased in minutes by timing, terrain, and decisions made under pressure. This was never just about drones. It was about how modern warfare punishes rigidity. Expensive systems looked powerful on paper, yet they were forced to react, to chase the obvious, to trust procedures written for a different kind of threat. The real damage did not come from the explosions themselves, but from what followed. Delayed offensives, broken schedules, and commanders suddenly unsure which assumptions still held. What makes this moment dangerous is not the scale of destruction, but the lesson it leaves behind. When small adaptive tools exploit geography, physics, and human psychology, even the strongest defenses can be pulled apart, one reaction at a time. No airspace needs to be dominated. No city needs to be occupied. Sometimes all it takes is one corridor, one night, and one mistake that cannot be reversed. And this is why stories like this matter. Because the battlefield is changing faster than doctrines can keep up. Because tomorrow's conflicts will not always announce themselves with sirens and missiles, but with silence, gaps in data, and outcomes that only make sense after it's too late. If you want more deep dive breakdowns like this, where we unpack modern warfare step by step, from strategy to technology to human error. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you clear, cinematic, and grounded analysis of how wars are really being fought today. And one last question before you go. When the screen goes quiet and the sensors show nothing, is that when you feel safest or when you should be most afraid?